Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest in our series of webinars, today hosted by BSO and Nova Futura. The title of the webinar is Unlocking Opportunities for Global Investors in Brazil with Low Latency Solutions. Thank you all for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And for those watching on a recording later, I do hope you all enjoy the content that we have. I think we've got a really good discussion coming up here and some good insights. So I'd first of all like to ask my panelists to introduce yourselves. My name is Matthew Lompriere. I run the sales team for BSO in Asia Pacific, Middle East and the UK. And I'm going to pass to David next to introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Matthew. Hello to everyone. Bem-vindo ao Brasil. Special welcome to good evening to everyone out in Asia. And what we're going to try and do today is show everyone how it's easier than ever to trade one of the fastest growing markets in the world today. A little bit about myself. I've been working in internet networking since 1990, some of the biggest networks. In Brazil, almost continuously since 2008, and actually speaking Portuguese for over 40 years. I began with BSO early this year to expand awareness, both the financial side and the infrastructure side of the market of what exactly BSO does and what it's capable of providing to local participants. BSO now has a legal entity in Brazil and the network footprint ready to deliver its portfolio of services. Now, as an investor and an observer of the adoption of technology over that time, this last 15 years, it's been a real transformation in the Brazilian market. I remember 2009, 2010, there were this many home brokers to choose from, trade on Ibovespa. Today, that number is over 50, I believe. If we take a macro view of exactly what's happening on the market, B3, the Brazilian exchange, CVM, the regulator, and also the government, they're all really pulling in the same direction. There's a realization that there is unrealized potential and capacity to bring new players, new liquidity to the market. The Brazilian market has already had a very large participation from abroad. It's historically about 50%. The B3 itself it moved to a new data center about 5 or 6 years ago. It works constantly on reducing the intra-exchange latency. It's recently introduced binary fix for faster trading. Looking at new products like weekly options that have just been introduced, expanding trading hours as well. If we look at CVM, quite recently they relaxed the rules for creating new BDRs, Brazilian depository receipts. They are localized instruments for non-Brazil assets. And if we look at the government's recent activity in importation duties, a lot of things have either had tariffs reduced or zeroed out with the objective to make it easier for people to invest in infrastructure in Brazil. So everything's really pulling together and driving to create more volume, more liquidity, and with the added bonus of the volatility that's inherent in the market. Matthew?
Thank you, David. And Tony from BSO, could I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely, Matthew. And I'll add my welcome and thanks for joining this webinar. So as Matthew said, my name is Tony Jones and I head up the global low latency strategy here at BSO, which I guess ultimately means I'm responsible for the 3Ds, as what I like to say, the 3Ds, that's defining, designing and deploying all of our BSO fixed low latency products and services. I've got over 35 years in the telco industry, working for a number of tier one network providers, covering multiple operational roles from subsea fiber deployments through to building and running key operational teams. And for the last 10 years, I've overseen the significant changes to the BSO organisation, having helped grow our back office functions, including our service assurance and project management and network engineering teams. With the last 3 years of those seeing the overview and the overhaul of an upgrade of our low latency platform. And so I'm here today to give a little insight into how BSO remains relevant in the low latency space. A little bit more succinct than David, but welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And Andre, please.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Andre Shearts, as Matthew just mentioned. I'm in electronic markets since Nybot was bought by ICE, and that whole thing went electronic. And since then, slightly after, when the electronic market started in Brazil in 2008. So I've been helping customers to understand, foreign customers to understand and be onboarded in Brazil for more than 15 years, right? Legally and from the technological part. So I hope I can add some value to all of you that are trying to understand or thinking about Brazil markets as a next step. And that's the main goal, I guess, for this call today, for this webinar today, to have you a bit with more insights of what we can do here and how you can strive in Brazil markets.
Thank you. And Phil, could I move to you, please?
Yeah, sure. Good evening. Good evening. I'm being based in Singapore. It is good evening. It's already dark outside, frankly. So just give you a background. My background is in a longer period of time in brokerage. And then I moved into the exchange world in 2009. I came over to Singapore to start up the Eurex office here in Singapore. Did that for a couple of years. Got a great insight into this amazing, fantastic and extremely diverse region, and have been out here ever since. So I guess it's captivating. I've been working with Andre now for about a year and a half, and we've been focused on speaking to clients and investors out here in Asia who are looking for and looking at being able to reach B3 from Asia, which it's actually becoming more and more interesting in terms of diversity of those people doing that. So I guess that's what we're here to talk about this evening, or your afternoon, morning.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Phil. And just to say a little bit more about myself, I had nearly 20 years over in Asia, living in Thailand, Japan, and more latterly Hong Kong, and moved back to the UK quite recently within the last couple of years. And I was in India last week, and nearly everybody I spoke to in India is either trading on B3 or looking at trading on B3 in the very near future. And we're certainly seeing a lot of interest from our client base over in the Asia Pacific region at the moment. And that's really why we wanted to do this webinar, particularly targeting the Asia Pacific region. So Phil, really the first question to you, what is driving this heightened interest in Brazil at the moment?
I mean, that's obviously an extremely good question, and there's a couple of forces that are actually pushing that, as you can imagine, because it is that diversity of the Asian region. So I've been traveling again. It's post-pandemic. I was up in Hong Kong in March for a conference, and effectively the whole scenario was essentially everybody was talking about proprietary trading groups and hedge funds from China moving offshore into Hong Kong, and we've seen a lot of family offices move from China into Singapore in order to trade offshore or be able to reach offshore markets. So that's one of the driving forces is essentially a disinvestment from China after an extremely long period of investment that we've seen predominantly over the past I've seen over the past 15, 20 years. And obviously there's a lot to read about that. So I've been reading a lot about what's been happening in China, which is obviously difficult to get a lot of information. So I try and pick sort of South China Morning Post to get some more detailed information, which is hopefully not as biased as some others. But if you look at news coming out, then equity volumes in China are down by 35%. The Hang Seng dropped to 17,000 from 31,000 in 2021. The CSI 300, which is based in Shanghai and Shenzhen, dropped by 7.7% this year. So it's a massive outpour of liquidity. So there was just an article yesterday which basically stated that 75 billion US dollars exited the country in September, which was up from 45 billion the month before. So it's just a continuous outflow of liquidity. Because the country hasn't really recovered since the pandemic. And this is obviously being the second largest economy, that has a huge effect, right? And that money needs to go somewhere and wants to go somewhere. So there's a lot of doubt. I mean, the economy is going to be there and will be still be one of the biggest economies, but people are starting to get their money out and want to look at investing in other places because they feel that there are other places that their investment finds better return on investment, and probably at the moment perhaps a safer way and an easier way to invest and be able to get your money out as well. So people are pulling their money out. I think the second is the high interest rates make it necessary for a lot of the trading groups out there who sometimes perhaps using leverage in order to increase their utilization of capital. They trade over multiple time zones. So they're not just trading in one time zone in 8 hours, but they're using that capital over 16, over 24 hours, which makes it a much better usage of their capital. And the third, actually, and this is where we get to, is that people are looking for an emerging market to trade. And if China and Russia are off the books, then Brazil is definitely one of the targets. And the one thing that, as we heard before, as David was saying, the exchange has done a great deal in terms of incentives and created stable liquidity and products with extremely high open interest that really pull and attract investors into the market. So I think those have been the driving forces.
Thank you, Phil. And moving on to Andre, we've heard there what the driving forces are: the money outflowing from China, etc. What should investors consider when they're trading on B3, and what are the opportunities that the Brazilian market offers to these people looking to trade other markets?
That's a good question, Matthew. And as Phil just mentioned, it seems to be a good moment to consider about Brazil. I mean, Brazil has all asset classes. I mean, we can trade equities, futures, derivatives of all sorts. So on future side, you have futures, interest rates, commodities, indexes, all that. So it's a very comprehensive portfolio of products that you could trade out of Brazil. Some of them are correlated with products that are traded globally, like many of the G10 currencies are here, some other emerging market currencies as well. We have about 1,000 BDRs listed in Brazil. Mostly are NYSE, NASDAQ, but there are about 30 names that are Asian, like Alibaba, or companies that are striving in Asia as well. We have one of the most traded interest rates futures in the world, if we're talking about interest rates, which is a thing nowadays. So our DI1 futures, they trade more than the Eurodollar, for instance, right? And many people don't know that. So it is and now with the whole volatility and things like that, we have a lot of liquidity. So the DI1s trade more than about 3 million contracts a day. our mini equity index was one of the most traded futures contract in the world for the past 5 years or so. So we have liquidity and we have volatility. Brazil on its own, there's always a movement in the market. There's always something happening. We're not a very stable region like Europe or US where things move, but not that much. They're good swings here. So there's good opportunity, right? Not to mention, there's a clear set of rules to onboard the foreigners. I think we'll have the chance to talk about this a bit later, but it's simple, it's straight, it's stable, it's easy to get money into the country, it's easy to get money out of the country. We have one single exchange, which makes things a lot easy in terms of fragmentation of liquidity and all that. We have one single API for futures and equities markets. So again, it's easy to onboard Brazil from a technological perspective. There is tax exemption if you're not in a low taxation jurisdiction for that, and that is a benefit for most foreign investors. Not to mention the exchange incentives, which are quite solid if you're co-located customer, HFT customer, for instance. They give up about a year and a half in exchange fees, depending on what volume you trade. So there is a full set of interesting arguments to why you should look into Brazil.
Thank you. And can I just ask you, you've mentioned the benefits there. Are there challenges to opening trading accounts or trading in Brazil?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, people are always kind of wary because they're trading far away from home, right? Brazil is not in the corner, but I wouldn't say that there are many challenges here. I mean, sometimes the biggest challenge is to be onboarded by the local custodian. You see, I think similar to what is the structure to trading India, you have to have a local custodian who will be your tax representative, though many of the countries are not required to pay any taxes. But you have to create a local tax ID for regulation and control purposes, right? That custodian will do the effects into the country, since Brazil is a restricted currency, right? It's not very easy to send money into Brazil, or you have to go through a bank to send into Brazil to say it properly. But it's easy to make the wire reach Brazil, and there's no restriction on taking the money out. One small challenge is you have to have your documents translated to Portuguese. Some people find it a hurdle. We have all the contacts for good translators, and they're normally cheaper, those that are locally in Brazil than the ones that are abroad, cheaper and faster. So this is a tiny difficulty on being onboarded in Brazil, I would say, but it's not that much. The other point is, as David mentioned earlier today, B3 is our exchange, and it's constantly changing the environment and the technological perspective, meaning we've just launched the market data on binary encoding, right? And we're about to launch the order entry right now. So there's a lot of changes going on. The weekly options are something to be launched by late November. So there are products being launched. There's technology coming into the market. Keeping up to that is a bit challenging, but that's where we think we can add value to all this, on keeping you informed and helping you digest all these information and driving you in the right direction.
Thank you. So I think really what you're saying there is you need a good, strong local partner to do the brokerage, to do the custodian, to help with the paperwork.
That would be indeed very handy. And I mean, the experience that you have here with Nova Futura and Phil being in the ground for Asia, that's exactly the point here.
Yeah, fantastic. And moving to David, we've heard there, you know, the reason why people want to trade in Brazil, the opportunity there, the fact that we need a good local partner for all the paperwork and the custodian, etc. But what about the technology partner? And could you give any insights into how low latency and high performance networks and infrastructure allow people from around the world to access the local services that Andre was just describing?
Okay, Matthew. Well, the good news is there has been a real growth cycle in the infrastructure market in Brazil. It was accelerated by the pandemic. But consumer content spiked, increased demand for bandwidth. You have 4G, then 5G. And new entrants came into the fiber market in particular, more data centers, significant presence now of venture capital and investment funds putting their money into infrastructure, in technical infrastructure in Brazil. And cloud adoption is a big driver for that. But in all, it's been a huge catch up with the rest of the world. To give you a couple of quick data points, Equinix, for example, who we all know, just this year for Brazil, they've announced $250 million of new investment, and that includes a whole new data center, B6, which will be near B3, and it's over 2,000 new racks across Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. To put that into context, that will be 6 Equinix data centers in Sao Paulo, in New York and London, Greater Britain. Another very, very illustrative way of explaining what's been happening. 3 or 4 years ago, what I was paying for a 100 megabit internet connection, I can now get 500 megabits for the same price. That's how much the market has evolved generally. So the costs go down through scale of competition. The diversity growth is very important for BSO, and where BSO operates, it means it can acquire fiber and cables at high speed, high reliability, better quality of service, and that all contributes to improved cost performance. We know that data volume grows in financial markets, especially as trading becomes more global and long distance. Where that's become more significant is that the prime entry route for data into Brazil now is almost 3,000 kilometers from B3 up in the north. That's probably unique in financial markets, I think. And that's exactly where BSO has been, I think, big places by coming overland from the northeast to Sao Paulo. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. Tony, we've heard there, from David on some of the investments that people are making into Brazil, like Equinix, for example, which is a significant investment there, I must admit. How does BSO, manage and approach low latency infrastructure into Brazil, and how do we make sure that we're always ahead of the market and providing the best type of service?
Yeah, honestly, another good question, Matthew. And I guess this, without sounding like a sales pitch, for those who are not aware, that BSO has been an industry-leading specialist in defining and deploying low latency routes for over 10 years now, well over 10 years now. We have a global portfolio of 70, what we would classify as 70 low latency or ultra low latency routes, provisioned across a dedicated low latency platform. And that allows us to serve the capital market industry for both an established and an emerging market perspective for some time now. And in parallel, we continue to work obviously closely with the incumbent asset owners across all the regions, including LATAM, or more specifically in this case, Brazil, to find creative ways to reduce latencies on existing routes, whilst also establishing sort of new low and ultra low latencies services towards the emerging markets. So if I tackle the second part of that question, I would say the benefits of creating an ultra low latency robust fiber solution between B3 and North America, Europe and Asia communities, targeting both the domestic and the international traders into and out of Brazil, were clear from my perspective, from a return on investment and P&L perspective. I know there was a report in the recent past that indicated that for every millisecond saved on a round trip delay was worth millions of dollars a year on a particular trade. So that's very relevant in regards to our clients and our prospect clients in regards to revenue and yield. And I'd say finally, from a BSO perspective, we provide predictable domestic routing across a stable platform, which delivers fully diverse, redundant solutions. And of course, they're all backed up by a very consultative industry-leading team that I'm very proud of.
Thank you, Tony. And I'm going to come back to David for a second, if I may. David, you talked about some of the investments going on at the moment, but where do you see the future trends of technology and technology investments, particularly around low latency and networks? And how do you see that impacting the Brazilian market on a global scale?
There's no sign that this new cycle in growth and infrastructure is going to slow down. And I'm thinking about the future trends, particularly for the market and low latency. We can see from data that high frequency trading is increasing on B3. B3 has its own program, HFT program, which offers special rates for those who sign up. And there's no indication that growth will continue. And of course, usually most volume on the market comes from that kind of activity. Andre's already told us there's a very wide range of instruments right here already. But what we're seeing globally is there are in certain areas that are less addressed by automatic trading or low latency trading. They're looking to automate things more. So we're thinking about the bond market, for example, and perhaps foreign exchange as well. And BSO has already played its part in making access to Brazil significantly easier. For the last couple of years, we've been able to reach Brazil directly from Europe. The cable that runs from Portugal to the north of Brazil and will play to Sao Paulo. There have been other route innovations with Tony indicated. And what's interesting is if you're in Western Europe, B3 is actually now closer than the Asian market. It's becoming closer. B3 to London and B3 to Chicago are quite similar times now as well, to give another example. And I think, both literally in terms of the market importance, low latency is bringing Brazil into the inner circle of key venues. That's clearly B3's objective, and I think it's achievable in the long term.
Thank you, David. No, that's very good insight into the future there. Thank you. So look, we've heard about why Brazil is becoming more interesting. We've heard how technology can enable that, and how having a local partner is very important. Can I just come back to Andre for a moment, please? I'm really interested in how specifically Nova Futura can help people access this really interesting market.
Thank you, Matthew. Nova Futura is in the market for more than 40 years. Our founder is also one of the founders of B3 Exchange, which was formerly BMF. We're top players in commodities and interest rates, and growing our presence internationally, right? We have access to all the asset classes that are traded in Brazil, very, very robust technological infra, right? We are talking to several partners abroad in terms of brokers abroad that can help us spread the word about Brazil and help on the onboarding process, since if that broker is already connected to us, the onboarding, opening the account in Brazil is a lot easier, right? On this sense, we're talking to a few partners in Asia region and also in Europe, but Orient Futures is already open and live with us. So if you're a customer of Orient Futures, it's an easy path into Brazil. So on that sense, again, we're connecting people, we're helping with everything that we can. So on this sense, we build a material called Why Brazil, which is we can distribute later to the audience of this, where it will show again a bit of the highlights that we've said today in terms of which are the products that are present in Brazil, what is the liquidity you can find, how can you hedge the effects. This is actually one of the key things that you should do. I mean, since Brazil is not a convertible currency, the hedge is normally done on the futures rather than on the spot. This is a bit confusing for some people, but the good thing is our bonds pay, to say something that in line with what David said, our bonds market is pretty solid and pays pretty good yield. So if you get your money into Brazil, the yield itself is already something very positive to your investment and would pay for the hedge that you have to do in the FX plus something. There is a premium here. So all those things together, so our knowledge, our experience, our robustness are key factors on why you should use Nova Futura for your trading in Brazil, I think.
Thank you. Now that makes sense. And Tony, I'm going to come to you next with really the same question around BSO. You know, how is it that BSO can help people access Nova Futura and the B3 market?
Well, I would say at our core, BSO is a technology-driven organization. I'd say at least 70% of our workforce are engineering or have technical backgrounds, including our CEO. So that sort of puts us at the front of the queue, I believe, in deploying these low latency solutions. But it also ensures our capital market routes have at least one point of redundancy across each path. We don't just build low latency technology, we build robust, diverse, and often not bespoke services for our clients. And we utilize our multiple supplier relationships very well, and our knowledge of fiber and infrastructure assets across all regions. We're able to create often than not secure, bespoke, as I said, fiber network solutions that facilitating a high level of availability. And I know availability in this region is something that has had a question mark against it for some time. And the services that, or the footprint that we've designed and deployed addresses the availability question as much as it does the latency perspective. I think it's also worth mentioning, I said on the few occasions where, and BSO's been doing this now for many years, as I said, well over 10 years, on the few occasions where we have been faced with a catastrophic failure of some sort or another, you know, we're able to fall back on our long experience of managing fiber networks, and being able to reroute traffic at a moment's notice, find, as I said, bespoke or clever solutions in being able to redeploy clients' traffic at short notices. So I believe that BSO is sort of unique in putting the client first, understanding the capital market requirements. Our organization is set up for it, and I think it's a really good fit.
Thank you. Now I'm conscious of time. We've got a few minutes left, and I've got a couple of questions that have come in to us over the message. So I'm just going to try and read the first one out. I don't have my glasses on, so if I'm squinting at the screen, that will be why. But question, actually, Phil, could I come to you with this one? Do I need a different license to trade different products, and do I need to become a member of the exchange to be able to trade?
No, you don't. So you don't. As Andre said, Nova Futura is a member of all the different parts of the exchange, so it's all one. So as we all know ourselves, there's a couple of exchanges where you need different licenses for different parts of the exchange. B3 has made that quite simple. You can, if the broker has the access, then you can trade those. As Andre said, you have a custodian that you have to open the account, but then the broker, which we are your local broker, we provide you access to the market. So we can take care of that for you. So there's no problem for that whatsoever.
Thank you. The next question I've got in, it's in kind of two parts actually, but I'll start with the first bit. I guess Andre or Phil, this one would be for you, and it's around options. This is actually something that I was asked about or heard about a lot in India last week as well. The people wanting to actually trade on options on the exchange. What are it says we've recently seen that options have overtaken futures volumes. What are the volumes like on B3, and what type of options do you have? Are they index or equities? And then the second part of the question is around types of asset classes. But if we could go to the options question first, please. Andre, would I be able to pass that one to you?
Sure. So we have options of FX futures. We have options on the interest rates, but the most liquid ones or the most traded ones, we also do have options on commodities futures, but the most liquid ones are the options on equities, on cash equities, right? We have about 154 stocks that do have options, trading about 100 million BRL on a daily basis in terms of notional, right? And about 660 million contracts a day. So we have options on the indexes as well. Our equity indexes is well traded. The options is there. We have options on BDRs as well, or ETFs. So there is a good community of options trading in Brazil. All the market makers, the big guys, are here. So it's a bit of a challenging environment if you're doing, depending on how you're trading, right? You have each one have its own strategy or something like that. But there is very good speed on this market and very good liquidity as well. In terms of what asset classes, you can trade all asset classes, right? You have futures, equities, options on futures, options on equities, commodities, FX, interest rates. We have futures on equities, for instance, which is a fairly new product. It's been a year or a couple of years live in the market most. So there's many interesting things to be traded in Brazil, which we can go into more depth later on if we have time, or if any of you have any questions, you can reach out to us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think we are getting a little tight on time. So I think really what I wanted to do now for the last couple of questions was really to come back to Phil, and then on to Tony with really the same question. But if I can come to Phil first, which is we've discussed a lot about the benefits of trading in Brazil, around the technology and around the market opportunity. What do you see as the next step for people? So we've got quite a lot of people on the call listening, and I'm sure a lot of people will be watching the video at a later date. What should they do now? What's the next step?
Well, obviously reach out to us, right? So, but the point is, I mean, what we can do, I mean, what Andre and I do is we always look at what the clients are currently trading, and we try and assess what would be a good market, what would be a good strategy for that person to adapt and adopt to for the Brazilian market. So you have to look at what you're trading, where is your knowledge, what types of things are you looking at? As Andre said, the asset classes are multiple. So the great thing, as we know, markets move in cycles, so that if that motor starts to change, you just move into a different asset class. You start a different algo on a different product. But we're there to basically help you, guide you to the next level. So we that's what we generally do first. We give you an introduction to the services. We can help to introduce you to custodians as well, so you get to know who they are, what they do, what services they offer. That's important to understand because they ring fence your money, and that's very important. And we provide the access to the exchange. So that's what we can do. So if you reach out to us, Andre or myself, we'll be happy to let you know what the next steps are in terms of getting access, getting information. As Andre said, we have a big interesting pack of what assets you can trade, what the basis is, what kind of strategies that people trade. So there's a lot to look at. So happy to talk you through those.
If I may interject just quickly, I mean, it's important for us to know what is the company DNA. I mean, what are you into? And then we'll drive you through. I mean, if you're point and click and you like commodities, yes, we have that. If you're HFT and you like trading futures, the most liquid futures, we have that as well. And we can provide the whole infra as a service as well. We're connected to the best providers, such as BSO for the connectivity. But if you need hosting, we can do the procurement. We can do everything that you need in terms of services for the co-location space as well. So it's just important for us to understand what is that you normally do, and we'll try to show you what is the best proxy, what is the best product that you could trade in Brazil as well.
Thank you. And Tony, the same question to you. What's the next steps for anyone here listening that will want to trade from the technology side?
Yeah, absolutely, Matthew. So, I mean, obviously, reach out. I mean, we're here to discuss and consult as well. But technology doesn't stand still, and at BSO we're acutely aware of that. In recent times, we've made significant investments in low latency routers and switches and hardware, etc. And obviously, the ability to find linear low latency fiber paths is critical to the outcome. But hybrid solutions, RF fixed line hybrid solutions are on the horizon. We're looking to deploy hybrid technology on a number of our existing routes, and LATAM would be, in my opinion, a good locality to see how we can implement, as I said, RF hybrid. And a little bit further down the line, low orbit satellite technology will eventually play its part, and the BSO are very much at the forefront in the conversations around that. So, as I said, we're a technology business. We understand that we have to move with the times. We have to understand that just deploying legacy assets will only take us so far. So we've got one eye on the future as much as we're maintaining the status quo today.
Thank you. And as a fellow technologist, I will just say that RF means radio frequency for those that aren't technologists. So that's things like millimeter wave, microwave services. So when Tony's talking about RF hybrid, he's talking about a combination of microwave, millimeter wave combined with fiber services to lower the latency as well. So I thought I would just add that. And David, obviously you're based over in Brazil. You're the man on the ground there, and local language skills and market knowledge. What would you say to people that need assistance? What would your call to action be?
Get in touch with us. Let us know what your requirements are. We're already in a position where we can connect B3 to any of the other major markets, including those in Asia. And, we're ready and waiting to help you to good businesses.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I think, Matthew, if I just to finish off from my perspective, it's worth noting today BSO are market leading on our latencies out of B3 to New York, to London, to Singapore. So we've invested heavily over the last 6 to 12 months, and we're very proud of what we have. It's not to say it doesn't stand still, but even today we're in the process of announcing a further latency reduction on our New York Sao Paulo route, so or B3 route. So I thought I'd just mention that.
Fantastic, thank you. So everyone watching, I'm conscious we're kind of at the time limit now. I don't know. Does anyone else have any further comments before I just wrap up? Just throw the webinar open.
Well, okay. It's been a pleasure to be here with all of you, and for those who are interested, please reach out to us.
Thank you. I have actually got one more question in, which is what is the current latency to Brazil? Tony, you just mentioned a new number, And I've got a question of what actually is that number?
Well, so New York to Brazil today, if I quote the New York latency today, which is the one I referenced, is a tad under 99 milliseconds, so 98.95 to be precise.
Well, so from my understanding, that's the first sub-100 millisecond route.
That is a bit of a groundbreaker. Yeah, I mean, bearing in mind that's a route that's been established for well over 10 years now. To get it down to under 100 milliseconds is significant.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations for that. So just to wrap up briefly from myself, unless there are any more questions that come through on the chat, I think we've heard why Brazil is an interesting market. We've heard how Nova Futura can really enable that for clients around the world, but particularly in Asia. And using BSO technology, you're going to get the best latencies and the best availability. So it does sound like the people on this call are the people to talk to around trading in Brazil. So please do get in touch. The details are on the screen there. There's a QR code to scan to get in contact with us. And, otherwise you have our names, and I'm sure you can find us on LinkedIn or other media platforms. So just the final thing, to thank everybody, all the panelists, for joining and for your time. So David, Tony, Andre, and Phil. Thank you to all the attendees and those who have dialed in to listen to us. And for those watching on video later, I hope you've enjoyed and learned something on the call today. And we look forward to hearing and speaking to you all soon. Thank you very much, everybody, and goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.